morning. Happy Tuesday. My name is Sam, and we are going to be talking about the YouTube rankings. So we're going to talk about a couple of these things here and dive in really deep on some of them. So what are we ranking? Why create a ranking? I think if you are watching this video, you know what we are ranking, so that'll be a quick answer. What are the power rankings? How do we create the YouTube ranking? And then just getting into the results. So with that being said, if this is your first time here, what's good? My name is Sam, and if you're a returning viewer, first of all, thank you. Second of all, you had better be pressing that thumbs up button. Now, with that being said, let's get into it. As I mentioned, if you're watching this video, you probably know, why am I only including these 10? Because these 10 are the ones that were in the debate in September. So I think I'm going to start trying some other people and see, like that guy Tom Steyer, or I think Tulsi something, I think the person's name is, or something. Anyways, that's who we're stack ranking 1 through 10. And why do we even create this ranking? Well, to really get into that, I wanted to first show you some data and then show you how things are currently taking place. So we've got New York and Iowa with a population of 19.5 and 3.1 million people in each of those states. And then we pulled up the Iowa Democratic Party process. So this is how they do their caucus in Iowa. So I'm going to read this to you. And then I just want you to think about it while I'm reading this. If you think this is the best or most accurate representation of what the people in Ohio as a collective are thinking in terms of who they want to elect for their Democratic Party nominee. Now, let's get into this. Okay, so I'm just going to read this here. Hopefully, make sure you can see this. Scroll up. Okay, so we're going to be reading, each precinct divides its delegate seats among the candidates in proportion to caucus goers' votes. Okay, well, that makes sense, right? Like, for each district, you just break them down proportionally. Participants indicate their support for a particular candidate by standing in a designated area of the caucus site. So, looks like we're about to play musical chairs by going to the caucus site and going into these specific areas. So if you like musical chairs, it's about to get really good. An area may also be designated for undecided participants. Well, that's good. So if you're not sure, you can go into that area. Then for roughly 30 minutes, participants try to convince their neighbors to support their candidates. So I guess that's saying is just make sure you let everybody know what you're going to bring to the potluck so that we don't end up with too much mac and cheese, because you're just going to be hanging out with your neighbors. But you should probably plan on eating quickly, because it looks like you're going to only have 30 minutes. I'm making light of this, but this is actually how the caucus is done in Iowa. I didn't make this up. This is Wikipedia. You can Google this shit yourself. I'm not making this up. This is reality. This is one of the steps in the process to elect our president. Yeah. Now think if that's representative of what the collective may think, right? In the state. Now we're going to jump over to New York. So same thing, we're on Wikipedia. This is the 2020 New York Democratic primary. And I'm just going to read you this. I'm going to read a little bit off of here for you. The 224 pledged delegates in the 2020 Democratic National Convention will be allocated proportionally on the basis of the results of the primary. Well, that's a good start. That's a good start. Of the 224 pledged delegates, between 5 and 10 are allocated to each of the state's congressional districts. So out of those delegates, they break the state into districts, and then they put 5 or 10 in each district. Okay, cool. That seems to make sense. I don't know what the rationale or the procedure is for that. Like, if is it based on population, whether they get 5 or 10. Because if you have one that has a lot more people, then maybe it needs more than 10, like New York City or something. And then, excuse me, and another 37 are allocated to party leaders and elected officials. So let's think about this for a second. It says party leaders and elected officials. So if we assumed maybe there's 37 people that can allocate another 37 delegates for New York, yeah, they could put that all on one person, right? But maybe because there's 37 people, there's a diversity of opinion, and then the votes kind of get split up between the candidates. Or do you think maybe it's only 3 people? Because that's still leaders and officials. Or maybe it's actually only one person who can take all 37 delegates and put them on one candidate. I don't know. It doesn't say. And that is how New York does their primary. If you were thinking about, does like that process, does either one of those processes that we just went through, does that sound like it's going to be super relevant to, or the most accurate representation of what the people in New York and people in Iowa want for their candidate? I don't know. Let's get into it and see, right? Let's get into this. I'm going to tell you why we created these power rankings. We have 7 factors. So with these 7 factors, what we were trying to do is just pick the things that's going to give us the most relevant data around each one of these factors. So we can get a much more holistic view of what is happening and what the people on a national level in the U.S. are thinking. Or we can do it on a more state-specific level. So if you want to watch those videos, make sure you press that subscribe button and that little bell notification. Side note, back to our regular scheduled programming. So the 7 factors are Google search volume, YouTube search volume. So what that means is you search for the candidates' names and then you stack rank them. Their websites ranking in the U.S., Facebook growth rate, Twitter growth rate, YouTube channel growth rate, and then donations. And I'm not giving you an interpretation of the data. I'm not giving you an opinion piece of the data. I'm putting this together and giving you the data to decide for yourself if you think that is relevant. If you think something like this might potentially be at least the same, if not way freaking better than what we're currently doing, or maybe a combination of the two to really get an essence or understanding of what's happening in society. I think some combination of both would probably be the most accurate way of doing something, whether that's a 95-5 split or maybe it's like 80-20. I'm not sure. We'd have to test it and see, but we will be able to see if this is accurate as time goes on. So that's what we call our power ranking, right? So the power ranking is all of those factors and then an average across all of those to see who overall is winning. This is number 2, right? Because we come over here, YouTube search and then Google search. So if you want to see Google, go check out yesterday's video, wherever that's linked. Okay, and it's back on the channel, by the way. So this is factor number 2. Why do we use YouTube? And then, how did we actually create it? Because I'm trying to be as transparent as possible so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. If you so choose to, you could go create your own thing and be like, oh yeah, this is what's happening. So I just want anybody else to be able to do exactly what I'm doing to show that I'm not putting an opinion or anything on here. So why YouTube? Let's start there. Well, we went over to Wikipedia on the list of the most popular websites in the world. And at number 2, we have YouTube, according to Alexa and SimilarWeb, which are websites that rank other websites and based on different statistics from those websites. And it's number 2 in the planet and number 2 in the US behind only Google. So the number of people that are on YouTube every single day searching for these candidates' names is tremendous. So we have a lot of data to look at, right? So all the people in New York, all the people in Florida, all the people in Texas, all those people that are searching for things, we get to stack rank each candidate's name to see who's searching for who, right? And to do that, we use Google Trends. Google Trends tracks all the search volume on Google and all the search volume on YouTube. So this is what it looks like. We have the candidates across the top here, right? And then we look at them in 3 separate time periods. We look at the 12-month, the 90-day, and the 30-day. But we're just going to look at the 12-month here. And we see that we have a couple different people here. So we just stack rank them. If there's a tie, then I come down and see who's winning more states. Or who has a higher percentage if there's nobody's winning a state of the 2 people who are tied. So we stack rank them 1 through 10 in each time period. Yes, it takes me a long time to do this, so thumbs up for that. So we stack rank them 1 through 10, who has the most amount of search volume at the 12-month mark and who has the least. And then we do that for 30-month. Who has the most? Who has the least? Who has the most? Who has the least for 30-day? And that is what brings us to wrong direction, Sam. That is what brings us to our the YouTube ranking. So let me zoom in a little bit so you get to see this a little bit better. The top 3 that we have here, I just want to make sure I'm not covering up in the data. I apologize. Keep switching back and forth. So we have Andrew Yang is number 1 on YouTube for 3 rankings in a row, which is pretty crazy because it's the 2nd biggest site in the world. So he has the most awareness on YouTube around him relative to all the other candidates. Tied for 2nd place is Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. However, I would predict that Joe Biden's actually going to be number 2 and Bernie Sanders is going to be number 3. And I want to show you why. If you look at this, if this is any indication of what might be happening, is that as when we come out with the next YouTube rankings, press the subscribe button and the bell notification to see it when it comes out. We can see that Joe Biden's gaining and Bernie Sanders is losing. This is because of what's going on with that Ukraine stuff and all the shady shit Biden's doing. So I think he might be losing credibility, even though he's gaining in search volume. So I'm curious to see how his social media is going to be impacted later this week when we do those rankings, like on Facebook and Twitter and his YouTube channel. Because we can see he's gaining on YouTube, we can see he's gaining on Google, but I wonder how his social's impacted. If you've lost so much trust, I wonder if there's people leaving his social, or because there's so much greater attention and scrutiny to this, that it's just bringing more awareness. I'm curious to see what will happen there. I have a feeling I know what's going to happen. I think that the overwhelming amount of attention that is out there is probably going to be good for him, but I could see it going the other way and I wouldn't be surprised. I'd love to know what your thoughts are down below. We have a couple more rankings and then we'll be getting into Facebook, so just make sure you subscribe to get in there. Another interesting thing to look at here is who's gained and who's lost. So that's what this middle column here is. And what that represents is when we first started, we did the ranking on 9/1, and now it is a month later, just about a month later. So who's gained and who's lost over the past month? The biggest winners and the biggest losers? Well, it looks like Pete Buttigieg and Amy both lost 1 spot. Whereas 3 people gained. We have Joe Biden, who gained 1 spot. We have the 0 line here at the bottom. Joe Biden, who gained 1 spot. Elizabeth Warren, who gained 1 spot. And Julian Castro, who gained 1 spot. So the monthly trend, we'll see if that continues going into October and the October debate. I also think that we might have some interesting things happen because the October debate is going to have different characters in the debate than the September debate. And the October debate, I believe, is the DNC is going to try to hold it all in one night. So if there's another debate where there's, say, 20 people on the stage, but maybe say it's 14 or 16, there's going to be very, very little for people to actually articulate anything clearly, which means there's probably going to be a lot more drama, which is probably good for the network that's hosting this. Because there's going to be a lot of bickering back and forth if people can't fully articulate their argument. And it will be interesting to see who will pull away with that, because some of this stuff indicates that it's being a closer race than we might had otherwise thought. Some people, it looks like they might be dropping out, maybe like Amy and Beto O'Rourke, but I'm not sure. If maybe they just have plenty of capital, maybe they love it, maybe they're doing it for all other reasons, like campaign financing, right? Like, what happens after you've raised $10 million and you only spend $5 million? Do you just get to give that to somebody else, right? And you can give it to an organization where you'll benefit, even though it's supposed to maybe be an arm's length transaction. Maybe there's you get to use it for business purposes. I don't know. But in either way, the ability for somebody to run for president on somebody else's dime, I think, is probably a very attractive thing. I'm not saying this is the case for any of these guys at all, but it could be, right? We hear that they want to change the country or the way that things are going, which is probably true for every single one. However, there may, I'm just putting it out there, be other alternatives or other motivations for why somebody might do something like this. Lastly, I just wanted to jump over here and read one of the comments and just touch on this. So if you want to see your comment read and talked about and discussed, then make sure you use the hashtag Stolt at the beginning of your comment, so that it will stand out more in the comment section when we go through and do this. Also, if you find any value in these videos, before we get into this comment, if you find any value or just the perspective is different or the thought process is different, share this video with somebody else who you think that you talk about with these things and they agree that maybe the media is biased. Maybe there is a better way of doing things, because I think this message needs to get out to more people. So if you believe that to be true and you found some type of value in this video, think about sharing this with somebody. It helps out the channel and hopefully gets the message out there more, if that's what you believe. I believe there's a better way of doing things, or just a different way of looking at things and the perspective shift that it might give us. So I would appreciate that. If you don't want to do that because you're like, the video is so good, but like not that good, then just press that thumbs up button. It helps out a lot with the YouTube algorithm. Let's get into this. So we have a comment here from Matthew Smith. Andrew Yang is the Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren of the 21st century. Bernie and Warren, the N is missing. N is missing there. Bernie and Warren are trying to use 19th century ideas to solve 21st century problems. I was a Bernie supporter in 2016. Andrew Yang, now my pick with his ideas that will help our 21st century problems. Andrew Yang, 2020. Yes, I do think that Bernie is viewed more of as the establishment than Warren is, but I do think that Warren holds on to a little bit of that stigma too, that she's part of the establishment, where I don't think Andrew Yang has any of that at all, because he's coming from outside the establishment. So I do think that there's a lot of people that agree with you, Matt, in terms of that there's definitely a stigma associated with them, where I don't think any stigma has, in terms of that specific has happened to Andrew Yang yet. Anyways, so if you appreciate this video, don't forget to press the thumbs up button, and peace the fuck out. More videos coming tomorrow.